GCSE poetry, war and conflict, checking out me history and poems to compare it to. So let's look at the annotated poem. So it begins by dem tell me, dem tell me. Now the use of repetition here creates an accusatory tone, showing the speaker's anger. Bandage up me eye. Now this has injury-like connotations, which imply that the speaker feels he has been hurt by his sheltered upbringing. Toussaint. Now the italics used here highlights the two accounts of history being distinctly separate. Du cow who jump over du moon. Now the phrase from the semantic field of childhood implies that the speaker feels he has lost his childhood and is stuck in the past. So, nanny, see far woman, of mountain dream, fire woman struggle, hopeful stream, to freedom river. Now you can see almost a sing-songy rhyme scheme going on over there, and it makes it easier to read. So let's look at the poet context. The poem was written by John Agard. He was born in Guyana and received a British education due to the country being colonised up until 1966. He was therefore giving a Eurocentric view of history whilst being denied by his own cultural identity. He was originally from a Dutch colony, which was part of the Dutch West Indies Company. Now during this time, Africans were sold as slaves to America and the Caribbean. His formative years were lived under British rule. However, eventually he saw his country become independent and realised how much of his identity he was deprived of. So let's look at structure and form essay points. There is something called dual structure, which is the division between the stanzas through Agard's use of italics, which as we saw, shows a separation between the history he was taught and the black history that's true. The repetition of dem tell me mirrors the rote learning, and it could be inferred that Agard has to rote learn the history he was taught due to its lack of personal relevance to him. It also creates an oppressive tone to the teaching of history. Each stanza begins with this, and it shows how colonial control has been dominating his life in the same way it dominates the poem. The repetition could also be interpreted to allude to Agard's emphatic desire to leave and have his message heard. Enjambment is also used in the connective but, and it's used to tie together black and white history, implying that they cannot be separated and black history cannot be ignored. The overflowing sentences also show that the speaker is attempting to express too much emotion to be constrained by a single line. This shows how much Agard cares about the subject matter, how he has so much to say, and how it's impacted him so very much as a person. Language essay points, so lots of metaphors of violence are used to show the cruelty of colonialism, such as blind me to my own identity. The active verb used in I carving out me identity creates impression that it's an ongoing, painful process. There are non-standard phonetic spelling. So, Creole is the native language of an area which has arisen from attempting to speak two different languages. This is present in all of the words that you can see. And it shows how the speaker is resisting the traditions of the English language and the restrictions imposed by colonial rule. Now, the use of phonetic spelling emphasises that this poem is a form of oral poetry. Normally, Agard writes in standard English, so this makes his poem definitely stand out above others. Now, this compares quite well to Ozymandias. In my previous video I explained this. So they both use oppression. So in this poem, Agard uses lexis from the semantic field of injury to show how colonial era teachers to blind him to his own identity, showing the pain inflicted by oppression of identity. Similarly, Shelley shows how someone who has been stripped of their identity, lone and level sands. In terms of differences, Agard's poem The Speaker is able to resolve to make a change and research his own history, whereas Shelley's description of Legs of Stone implies that the corruption of power is permanent and will persevere. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe to No Waffle GCSE.